We won't break!
Not while I have this!
We fly!
Hit subscribe and turn on the bell. New dark fantasy narrations drop every week, and you do not want to miss what's coming. Now, let's get into it. The bells of Valoria had been ringing for 3 days. One toll for every year the king had ruled. Elara had counted them from the crawl space above the great hall, pressed flat against cold stone, listening to a kingdom grieve. Below her, through a gap in the mortar, the grand elders led the funeral procession. White robes, lowered heads, faces arranged into grief that looked rehearsed. Elder Voss stood at the foot of the funeral pyre with his hands folded. The lead elder, the oldest, the one her mother always straightened her spine around without explaining why. Elara watched him and felt something cold move through her chest. It wasn't grief. It wasn't anger. It was the feeling she got when something was wrong in a way she couldn't yet name. Her wolf stirred. Nyra wasn't looking at the funeral, wasn't watching the king's body being prepared for the earth. She was staring at the air vents near the base of the eastern wall. Narrow iron grates set low into the foundation, leading down into the palace's sealed sublevels. Elara had learned to trust this. When Nyra looked somewhere with that quality of stillness, there was always a reason. She pressed closer to the gap. The elders below chanted in low voices. Incense smoke rose in slow spirals, thick and sweet, filling the great hall with a smell designed to cover everything else. But underneath it, Nyra was pulling at her mind like a hand gripping a rope. Blood, the wolf said, not in words, in pressure, in certainty, silver, something breathing that should not be breathing. Elara looked one last time at Elder Voss and his folded hands and his borrowed grief. Then she turned from the gap and began crawling east. The passage sloped downward past the wine cellars and the old storage rooms. The smell changed as she descended. Incense thinning, something metallic rising to replace it. Something that made Nyra press herself flat inside Elara's chest. She stopped at a wall that had no business being there. Newer stone, fresher mortar, sealed with something that made the surrounding air feel thin and electric, the way the sky felt before lightning. Not a mason's work, something older. Something done with intent. Elder magic. Nyra went completely silent. Alive, the wolf said. In there, alive! Elara pressed her palm flat against the false wall and felt it hum beneath her skin. Above her, 4 stories up, the bells kept ringing for a dead king. She began looking for the weakness in the seal. It took 2 hours. The elder magic didn't break cleanly. It fractured along invisible lines, piece by piece, each fracture burning her palms like she was pressing them against hot iron. Nyra shook inside her chest the entire time. Elara kept her teeth together and kept pressing. When the final piece gave, a section of false stone ground sideways, and the smell that poured out hit her like a fist. Silver, old silver, years and years of it. She pulled her sleeve over her face and stepped through. The chamber was not large. Stone walls, original shelving brackets hanging empty, a drain in the center of the floor, and a chair bolted to the stone. A man sat in it. He was not dead. She had prepared herself, in the 2 hours of burning and pressing and refusing to stop, for the possibility of a corpse, a body, something that had once been a person and was no longer. She had not prepared herself for eyes that opened when she entered. They were dark, very dark, and they found her face immediately with the trained focus of someone who had learned to locate danger before danger located him. He was young and ancient at the same time, hair long past his shoulders, the color of ash, clothing that had long since become the memory of clothing. 4 chains ran from the chair to the wall, both wrists, both ankles. Where the silver touched his skin, the skin had stopped trying to heal years ago. He looked at her. She looked at him. Neither moved. Then he said, in a voice like a door unused for a decade, "You're not one of them." "No," Elara said. "I'm not." He looked at her hands, then at the chains. He didn't ask. He didn't beg. He had been in this room long enough that asking had become a language he no longer trusted. Elara crouched in front of him. She looked at the silver chains. She looked at her already burned palms. She thought about Elder Voss and his folded hands. She took hold of the first chain and pulled. Nyra screamed inside her. The silver burned clean through the existing damage and started on new skin. Elara locked her jaw and kept pulling. 1 chain, 2, 3, 4. When the last one fell, he made a sound she felt more than heard. Something compressed for years, releasing all at once. Then he was very still. He looked at his own hands. She understood that he was seeing them for the first time in a long time. "Can you stand?" she said. "I don't know," he said. She appreciated that. No pride, no performance, just the true answer. "Try," she said. Slowly. He tried. His legs had no memory of it. He went down. She got under enough of his weight that the stone floor didn't win completely. "The muscles come back," she said quietly. "It takes time." "How much time?" "I don't know." She adjusted her grip. "I've never unchained a prince before." He went very still. "You know who I am," he said. "I know what they announced when I was 13. That the prince died on a border mission." She met his eyes. "I also know what I just found at the end of a passage the Grand Elders sealed off." He was quiet for a long moment. "What is your name?" he said. "Elara." Another silence. Then, with enormous effort, he pushed himself up to sitting against the wall. He looked at her with those dark, careful eyes. "Before you decide what to do next," he said, "you need to understand something." "All right." "I have been in this room for 10 years. No emotion, just dimension, like describing a space. I have thought about what I would do when I got out every single day for 10 years. He paused. "The things I have planned. You should know what you are carrying, if you choose to carry me." Elara was quiet for a moment. "I know what I've thought about doing," she said. "I'm still here." He looked at her. Whatever he was searching for, he found something. She held out her burned hand. He took it. Between the two of them, they got him standing. He stood in the doorway of the chamber and looked at the passage beyond it. She couldn't see his face from where she was, supporting his weight on her right side, but she felt the quality of his stillness and understood it. After a long moment, he moved forward. Above them, the bells of Valoria continued to ring for his dead father. The passage was 50 feet long. It took them almost 30 minutes. He leaned on her heavily at first, not from choice but from necessity, his legs firing in wrong sequences, muscles waking up confused and angry after years of disuse. She bore the weight without comment. She was stronger than she looked. Maids who worked the palace's upper floors spent their entire lives carrying things upstairs, and strength had built quietly in her over 23 years without anyone thinking to notice. She noticed everything about him on that walk, because noticing was what kept her calm. His breathing was controlled, deliberately so, she could tell, the specific rhythm of someone who had learned to manage pain by managing breath. His jaw was set. He made no sounds that weren't necessary. When his right leg buckled on the first incline, she caught him, and he said nothing except to adjust his grip and try again. She was beginning to understand that he had spent 10 years becoming very difficult to break. "There are stairs ahead," she said. 12 of them." "How steep?" "Moderate. I'll go first." "Use the wall on your left." "All right." The stairs took a long time. She went slowly, and he matched her pace, and when they reached the top landing, he stood there for a moment with his eyes closed, breathing through the effort. She let him have it. "Where are you taking me?" he said. "East attic, room behind the broken boiler." She checked the passage ahead. Empty. No one goes there. The heating hasn't worked in 6 years and no one's bothered to fix it. "How long until they find the chamber?" "They'll feel the broken seal by morning." She moved to the next passage junction and listened. "We have tonight." He absorbed this. What is your plan after tonight? He said. I'm working on it. That means you don't have one yet. That means I have the first part, and I'm building the rest. She looked back at him. Right now, the first part is getting you to the attic. Everything else comes after. He looked at her for a moment. All right, he said. Lead. The east attic was warm from the broken boiler's residual heat and smelled of dust and old timber. The window was the size of a book. The walls were close. It was the most hidden room in a palace full of hidden rooms, and Elara had known about it since she was 9 years old. She settled him against the wall that backed onto the boiler casing and looked at him in the better light. Tall, sharp-boned, the structure of his face still carrying something authoritative beneath the years of damage, something that 10 years of silver and darkness hadn't fully erased. She had been thinking of him as the prince, as the mission, as the problem she had created by refusing to walk past a wall. Looking at him now in the attic light, she thought, he was 17 when they did this to him. I'll be back within the hour, she said. Don't move more than the room requires. Where are you going? To get what you need. She paused at the door, and to be seen doing ordinary things so no one asks where I've been. He nodded once. She went back into the palace and became a maid again. Elara moved through the post-funeral corridors the way she always moved. Purposeful, unremarkable, a maid with somewhere to be. She had learned this performance early. Her mother had taught it to her not as deception, but as survival. Move like you belong, her mother had said. To move like whatever you're carrying is exactly what you're supposed to be carrying. Elara had been 7. She had practiced on empty corridors before she understood what she was practicing for. She understood now. From the physic cupboard, she took medicine, gauze, and a small glass bottle of cleaning solution, using the key her mother had trusted her with for 3 years. From the kitchen, she took bread and dried meat, slipped from the back of the preparation shelf where stock was rotated, and small absences went unnoticed. From the linen room, a blanket. 3 separate trips, 3 different routes, nothing taken in quantities that registered. Then she went to find her mother. Not because she had to, because not going would have been a signal. Her mother was in the east corridor, named supervising the folding of the ceremonial linens with the focused authority of someone who had spent 30 years ensuring the palace ran invisibly. She looked up when Elara appeared. Their eyes met. Something passed between them. The specific wordless communication of 2 people who knew each other completely and had learned to say important things in the space of a glance. Her mother's eyes asked a question. Elara's face gave nothing. Her mother held her gaze one moment too long, then looked back at her linens. Elara left. She did not run. Running was a signal. She walked at maid's pace, steady, unremarkable, back to the east attic, and she did not breathe properly until the door was closed behind her. He was exactly where she had left him. She set the supplies down and got to work on his wrists. The silver burns were deep, not fresh damage, but layered damage, years of healing interrupted and restarted until the skin had given up organizing itself in any normal way. She cleaned them without speaking. He sat without moving. This is going to need time, she said. Proper treatment takes weeks. We don't have weeks. I know, so we treat what we can and we manage the rest. She wrapped the first wrist in clean gauze. The elders will search the palace tomorrow when they feel the broken seal. They'll start with the lower levels and work up. Will they search the attic? Eventually, but not first. The attic is servant space. They don't think about servant space. That's been useful for you. It's been useful my entire life. She moved to the second wrist. He watched her work with that same focused attention he gave everything, like a man who had learned to extract maximum information from whatever was in front of him, because information had been all he had. How many elders are there? He said. 7 on the Grand Council. 3 are loyal to your father's memory. They'd recognize your claim if you could reach them. She tied off the bandage. The other 4 are Vosses. They've been placed over the past 2 years. Placed how? 2 natural retirements that weren't quite natural. 1 relocation. One who changed his position so gradually, no one marked exactly when it happened. He was quiet, processing. "You've been watching this," he said. It wasn't an accusation. It was recognition. "I clean their rooms," she said. "I serve their meals. They speak freely in front of me." She looked up. "They don't see me. That has been very informative." "What is Voss planning now that the king is gone?" "A formal transfer of power, framed as a regency council since there is no heir, officially." She paused. "He'll move within the week, before any of the 3 loyal council members can organize resistance." The attic was quiet. Outside the small window, the eastern garden was dark and empty. "Eat," she said, pushing the bread toward him, "and then sleep. Tomorrow we plan." "Elara," she paused. "You could have walked past that wall," he said quietly. He wasn't looking at her. He was looking at the dark window. "You could have heard Nyra and kept moving." She thought about that. Her burned hands. The 2 hours of pressing against magic that didn't want to give. "I could have," she said. "Why didn't you?" She was quiet for a moment. "Because Nyra was right," she said. "And when Nyra is right, I have learned that walking away costs more than going forward." She left the door open a crack, in case darkness was something he needed to choose rather than have imposed, and went back down through the palace. She had until morning. She began to plan. On the second night, his legs worked better. Not well. He still moved like someone relearning a language their body had forgotten, but better. She watched him cross the attic room twice, slow and deliberate, and said nothing because encouragement from her was not what he needed. What he needed was to do it himself, and he was doing it. She changed his bandages. The skin underneath was beginning to look less like a record of damage and more like skin again. Slowly. "Tell me about your wolf," she said. He didn't answer immediately. "His name was Rael," he said finally. "Was." Past tense. She waited. "The silver doesn't just burn the skin," he said. "You know this." He held out his wrist, the worse one. "Prolonged contact suppresses the wolf. Long enough." He stopped. "Long enough, and the wolf can't come back." Elara was very still. "Is Rael gone?" she said. "I don't know." He said it with the flatness of someone who had spent years examining this question and had found no clean answer. "I can't feel him. There are moments, very small moments, when I think I sense something, but I don't know if that is him or just memory." She thought about Nyra. The specific warmth of her, are constant and alive, the way she pressed against Elara's ribs when she was worried, the way she went still when she was focused. The thought of losing that, of having that space go empty and stay empty. "I'm sorry," Elara said. "Don't be. Not yet." He looked at his hands. "If we do this right, if the silver is gone long enough." He stopped again. "There are cases in the records. Wolves who came back after suppression. It takes time." "Then we'll give you time," she said. He looked at her. There was something in his face she hadn't seen there before. It wasn't hope, exactly. He had been too careful with hope for too long. It was something smaller. The place where hope might eventually stand, once he trusted the ground again. "Your turn," he said. She looked up. "What?" "You told me 2 nights ago that you killed a man when you were 15. You told me what happened." He held her gaze. "You didn't tell me what happened after." She was quiet. "After," she said slowly, "I put everything back the way it was. I made it look like he had left. I went back to my bed." She looked at her hands, the old burns from the seal, the newer ones from the chains, the oldest ones only she knew about. "My mother found out in the morning that he was gone. She thought he had run from his debts. She thanked God for it." "She never knew?" "She never knew." "And you never told her?" "If I told her," Elara said, "she would have spent every day since then afraid for me. afraid of what they would do if they found out, afraid of what it meant about who I was. She paused. She's spent enough of her life afraid. I decided that was mine to carry. The attic was quiet. The thing I have never told anyone, Elara said, is that I wasn't sorry. The silence stretched. Good, Kaelen said. She looked up at him. The man came for your mother in the night, he said. You don't owe him your guilt. He looked back at the window. Save it for someone who deserves it. It was the most he had said at once, and it sat in the small room like something solid. Elara stood, gathered her things, pulled her cloak around herself. Tomorrow, she said, we start working on what comes next. What does come next? She paused at the door. We find the 3 loyal council members, she said, before Voss does. She found the first name on the 3rd morning. The Council Elder Marin, the oldest of the 3 loyal members, took her breakfast in the blue room, which was on Elara's regular cleaning rotation. Elara had been serving her breakfast for 2 years. She knew the elders' habits the way she knew every room in the palace, completely, invisibly, in the way that only comes from being present without being seen. Elder Marin set down her cup. You're carrying something, the old woman said, without looking up from her correspondence. Elara went still. I don't know what you mean, she said. You've cleaned this room 400 times. Elder Marin looked up now. She had sharp gray eyes and the specific posture of someone who had spent 60 years paying attention. You always start at the east window. Today, you started at the door. She paused. Something has changed for you. Elara looked at the woman for a long moment. She calculated. She measured. She thought about Kaelen in the east attic and his careful dark eyes, and the 3 loyal council members who were all that stood between Voss and absolute power. She set down her cleaning cloth. If I told you something, Elara said carefully, that would change everything you think you know. Would you hear it? Elder Marin looked at her for a long time. Close the door, the old woman said. She did not tell her everything, not the attic, not the exact location, but she told her enough. The chamber, the chains, the seal, the man who was not dead. Elder Marin sat very still through all of it. When Elara finished, the room was silent. Then the old woman said, Show me his wrist. I'm not asking where he is. I'm asking you to bring me proof. The silver burns on a royal wolf are distinctive. There are patterns specific to the Genesis bloodline. I need to see them. Elara nodded once. The other 2, she said. Elders Soren and Calveth. Are they safe to approach? Soren, yes. Calveth. Elder Marin hesitated. Calveth has been under pressure from Voss's faction for 8 months. I don't know where he stands now. Then we start with Soren. The old woman looked at her. You're a maid, she said. Not dismissively, observationally. That's what I've been, Elara said. She picked up her cleaning cloth. I haven't decided yet what I'm going to be. That night she told Kaelen. He listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for a while. Marin is sharp, he said. I remember her. She was the only elder who ever spoke to me in council, like I was a person and not a piece being moved. She wants proof. The silver burns. He held out his wrist, not reluctantly, but practically, a man used to using what he had. She'll recognize them, he said. The Genesis pattern is specific. My father had it. She would have seen it. He paused. What about Voss? Has he started the search? He posted additional guards to the sublevels this morning. Elara sat against the wall. He's looking. But he's looking down, not up. How long before he looks up? A week, maybe less. Kaelen nodded slowly. He was getting steadier on his feet. She could see it. The muscle memory coming back piece by piece. The body remembering what the mind had preserved. When Marin is confirmed, he said, and Soren, we'll need a location, somewhere to meet, Somewhere the Elder's guards don't patrol. I know a place, she said. He looked at her. Of course you do, he said. That almost smile again. Closer now than it had been. Still not quite arriving, but she could see where it was headed. She was beginning to think, when it finally arrived, it would change his whole face. On the 5th night, Nyra woke Elara at the 3rd hour. Not gently. The wolf pressed against the inside of her ribs like a fist, urgent and insistent, pulling her up from sleep before her mind had caught up. Someone is in the East Passage. Elara was on her feet before the thought finished forming. How she moved through the dark of her small room without light. She had navigated these corridors without light since she was 9, and darkness had never been an obstacle, and slipped into the servant passage that ran parallel to the East corridor. She heard him before she saw him, one of the Elder's guards, young from the sound of his footsteps, uncertain weight distribution, a man who hadn't been doing this long. He had a lantern, and he was moving slowly, checking doorframes, running his hand along walls. He hadn't reached the east attic yet. Elara followed him in the dark. She did not plan what came next. Planning was for before. Once you were in the dark following a man with a lantern, planning was a luxury you had already spent. He found the attic staircase. He started up. Elara moved. She came from behind, quickly, the way she had learned at 15 that these things had to be done. Not with anger, not with hesitation, but with the specific cold focus of someone who has already made the decision and is simply executing it. She caught him at the top of the attic stairs. He went down. He did not get back up. She stood over him in the dark for a moment, breathing. Nyra woke up. She stood over him in the dark for a moment, breathing. Nyra was very still inside her. The lantern had gone out when he fell. She left it. She checked the staircase below, empty, and then went to the attic room and knocked twice, then once, the pattern she had established the second night. The door opened. Kaelen looked at her, then past her at the dark staircase. There's a guard, she said. East Passage. He won't be reporting back. He was quiet for a moment. Are you hurt? He said. The question surprised her. Not did you deal with it, or are we compromised? Are you hurt? No, she said. He nodded. They're moving faster than a week, he said. Yes. Then we move tomorrow. He held her gaze. Marin, Soren, whoever is ready, we can't wait any longer. Elara leaned against the wall. Her hands were steady. They were always steady after. That was the part that used to frighten her about herself. The stillness that came after the violence, like a door closing on a room. She had told him about the man at 15. He had said, "Save your guilt for someone who deserves it." She was beginning to believe him. Tomorrow, she said. We go tomorrow. Elder Marin looked at Kaelen's wrist for a long time. They were in the undercroft of the old chapel, the one place in the palace Elara had identified years ago where the guards' patrol routes left a gap of 40 minutes. She had brought Kaelen through the servant passages before dawn, slowly, with his hand on the wall and his legs holding. They had held. Elder Soren stood beside Marin, a smaller man, quieter, with the specific stillness of someone who had been frightened for a long time and had gotten very good at not showing it. He had come when Marin sent for him. He had not asked questions. He was asking them now, with his eyes instead, watching the woman he trusted examine the burns on a dead prince's wrists. Marin looked up. The Genesis mark, she said. The star pattern at the inner wrist. I've only seen it once before. She paused. On his father. Soren exhaled. Gray Kaelen said nothing. He held Marin's gaze with those careful dark eyes and waited. Why didn't you come forward? Marin said. When they first brought you back, before the chains. They didn't give me a door to knock on, Kaelen said. Voss was waiting in the sublevel. There was no before. Marin absorbed this. Voss believes he was right, she said. It wasn't a defense. It was a diagnosis. I know, Kaelen said. He will not break. He will not negotiate. When this reaches the throne room, she paused. He'll walk to the execution with his chin up. I know that too. The old woman looked at him for a long moment. Then she straightened. Soren, she said, you understand what we are committing to. I understood when she came to find me, Soren said. He looked at Elara. A maid walks into my study and tells me the prince is alive. I decided then. Marin nodded. Calveth is lost to us, she said. He went to Voss's side fully 2 months ago. We 3 are what we have. She looked between Kaelen and Elara. The coronation of the lead elder is in 4 days. Voss intends to formalize the power transfer publicly with the full court present, so it cannot be undone. Then we move before the coronation, Kaelen said. We move at the coronation, Elara said. Everyone looked at her. Think about it, she said. The full court, every noble house, every alpha representative, everyone who has the power to legitimize a crown, assembled in one room. She held Kaelen's gaze. You don't want to take the throne quietly. You want witnesses. The Undercroft was silent, for Kaelen looked at her for a long moment. 4 days, he said. 4 days, she said. Then we need to prepare. Elara nodded. She was already planning. The first day, they moved Kaelen. Marin arranged it, a small room in the chapel's private wing, nominally belonging to a visiting clergy member who did not exist. Stone walls, a real bed, meals brought by Moraine's personal attendant, who had served her for 20 years, and would serve her in this too, without being asked twice. Elara watched Kaelen step through the door of the chapel room and stop. A real bed, a window with actual light, a table with food already laid out. He stood there for a moment, with his back to her. Kaelen, she said. Give me a minute, he said. She gave him the minute. The second day, she watched him walk without the wall. Not far, not fast, but upright and independent, moving across the chapel courtyard in the gray morning with the deliberate patience of someone rebuilding something they refused to let stay broken. His wolf was still silent. She didn't ask about it. She had learned which questions had answers, and which ones just opened a room that needed to stay closed for now. What she noticed instead was how he thought. He asked her questions all through the second day, about the palace layout, the guard rotation, the seating arrangement for formal court proceedings, the specific positions of every elder at the last 3 events she had attended. He asked with the methodical precision of someone assembling a structure piece by piece. He was becoming a king again, not all at once, in stages, like the muscles in his legs, slow and deliberate, and absolutely refusing to stop. The third day, Nyra did something she had never done before. She reached. Elara felt it first, as a warmth in her chest, and then as a direction, outward, not inward, Nyra pressing her attention towards something specific. Not a threat, not a warning, a greeting. Elara stood very still. Across the chapel courtyard, Kaelen stopped walking. He put one hand flat against his chest. He stood there for a moment. When he turned, his face had something on it she hadn't seen before. Something raw and enormous that he was pressing down with everything he had. He didn't say anything. She didn't say anything. She just nodded. He nodded back. Rael was still in there. The 4th day, she came to him at dawn. He was already awake, sitting at the window with the gray morning light on his face and his hands folded and his eyes open. She sat across from him, and they looked at each other across the small table. Are you ready? She said. He thought about it honestly, the way he did everything. I've been ready for 10 years, he said. The question is whether I'm the right kind of ready. She understood what he meant. The 10 years in a room kind of ready, the feral, burning, burn-it-all-down ready, versus the kind that could walk into a throne room in front of the full court and be a king rather than a weapon. You listened to me, she said, when I told you what I thought. You didn't dismiss it. You didn't decide you knew better because of who you are. She paused. That's the kind of ready you need to be. He looked at her. You're not afraid, he said, of any of this. I'm afraid of everything, she said. I've just had a lot of practice going forward anyway. He was quiet for a long moment. Outside, the first bells of the morning began to ring. Not morning bells this time, the daily bells of a palace that didn't know what was coming. After tomorrow, he said carefully, whatever happens in that throne room, I want you to know that I understand what you've done, what you risked, what it cost. It cost what it cost, Elara said. I'd do it again. He held her gaze. I know, he said. That's what I mean. She stood, pulled her cloak around her, and looked at him one more time. A man who had been a ghost for 10 years, sitting at a window in the morning light, learning to exist again. Tomorrow, she said. Tomorrow, he said. She walked out into the palace. The bells were ringing, and for the first time, they didn't sound like grief. End of Part 1. That's the end of Part 1 of the Ghost King's Ascension. A prince chained under his own father's funeral. A maid who refused to walk past a wall. Two people carrying a decade of damage between them, building something in the dark. Tomorrow, they walk into the throne room. Part 2 is coming. And it will not be quiet. Where are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments right now. Let's see how far this story has traveled tonight. And tell me, are you on Kaelen's side or Elara's? Because in Part 2, you're going to have to pick. Subscribe to Gatelord and hit the bell so Part 2 drops straight into your feed the moment it's live. Part 2. The hunt begins. The elders start to fall, and one of them fights back in a way nobody saw coming. Don't miss it.
We won't break!
Not while I have this!
Get out, we fly!